All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, September 28th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, we have 4 huge wide release movies coming out this weekend that we got to preview. So, we could have done this on our own easily, would have been great, of course, but we chose not to. Instead, we chose to bring in a special guest, part of the BO organization, our chief senior wannabe intern, Christopher is here. Christopher, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be here I'm mic'd up like you guys now. I feel a little bit closer to a BO boy with the mic now. It's a little more official.
The audience is hearing you in a brand new way, because up until now they've always heard you on some crappy built-in computer mic, and now you're on a real mic, like a real boy, like a real adult. So this is great. So Christopher, very excited to have you and to have your new microphone on the show today to talk about 4 new releases. Before we get into the releases, just want to really quickly, because on our last episode we had Kirk Minahan, Podcast Jesus, was on the show. Third time, he's going for the record down the road. This is a great battle now between him and Scott Mendelson, who's going to get the all-time guest record.
And Jeff Bach also.
Yeah. Jeff Bach, of course, and Brett of The New Flesh. So there's a lot of contenders. Kirk's got a long way to go.
Soon. Honestly, a few more shows, I could be up there.
You're in it. So Kirk's got a lot of great guests to surpass at some point. But he currently is looking for a new producer. He's got a pay-per-view special this weekend, this Saturday, that he's out there plugging. And the big draw is he's going to announce a new producer. Now, Christopher, you heard us throw your hat into the ring the other day. So is there a chance you show up on pay-per-view this Saturday night, Kirk Minahan, and the announcement is made that you're taking over as producer of that show? Can you say that is a possibility right now?
I could. I gotta say, I think all the wannabe girls, wannabe boys, wannabe people out there just need to, I guess, buy the pay-per-view and just watch and find out.
Oh, because even we don't know. We don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah,
Maybe Christopher. We don't know. That's why
Jack might be the senior intern Sunday, for all we know. Yeah.
Listen, let's not go down that road yet. My heart just leaped into my throat. But that's why you got to order this pay-per-view, because you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Christopher can come up on that stage to a rousing set of applause and cheers. Rapturous applause.
Right. Christopher could close the pay-per-view by naming the babe of the week right there on stage. So who knows what's going to happen on this pay-per-view? Possible BO Boys crossover. So very exciting. So Christopher, of course, you were almost going to be on the show a couple of weeks ago, but you and your roommates partied so hard that your internet went down. But I'm glad you were able to keep it under control tonight, because we have got a lot of movies to preview. And I'm going to start with the movie that I'm most excited about. That Clayton has given me a hard time on this one, because I've been talking it up since the summer. It's a movie whose trailer has a real song in it for the first time in the history of this franchise, and I think that's a big deal. Of course, I'm talking about Saw X. So I'm throwing it out here. We're going to do our predictions later, but of course, I think this is going to be the number 1 movie of the weekend. I think Saw X is going to be huge. The draw of this movie, of course, it has the Holly song in the trailer. That's big.
Yep.
And it is being promoted as a direct sequel to the first Saw movie. It is supposed to happen in between Saw 1 and Saw 2. And I think when you look at horror franchises, that is always a big move to say this is the true first sequel. So I think this is going to be big. Clayton, you're of course going to get a chance to say that Saw's dead. But Christopher, what is your thoughts on this Saw X movie opening? Does this feel bigger to you than the last batch of Saw movies has been, or do you think this franchise is done?
I say never bet against horror. I definitely think it'll be one of the biggest ones. I haven't even seen all the Saw movies, but I did see Jigsaw and Spiral in the theaters, and I think I'm more excited for this one than those two, because the trailer did genuinely look good for someone that has not seen a single one of those other Saw movies.
Well, okay. So, since you have the ear to the ground there on campus, what about your friends? Are they buzzing? Are they all a buzz about Saw X this weekend?
None of my friends are horror hounds, sadly. So
Okay.
Saw that they wouldn't be interested in any horror movie. But Saw X definitely not, because they definitely know what Saw is. So I think that definitely would not work out for them.
Now
Are
you
they
hit on
only into
something.
party movies? Or are they only into like busty bosomy movies?
No, well, superheroes obviously
Okay.
that's still the big draw for the most part.
Mhm.
But so my friends back home do like horror, and I bet they'd be down to see Saw X, but a lot of them here don't like horror as much.
Now you hit on something here, Christopher, as to why this movie is not going to succeed in the way that Pat thinks it will, is because in order for a horror movie to do Buffa Bobo, listen, there's a lot of gore hounds out there. There's a lot of them. But a horror movie needs to expand outside of that circle in order to really make Buffa Bobo. And what you're going to see with Saw X is that this is only the hardcores. This is the hardcore horror fans and the hardcore Saw fans and a few smattering of Holly's fans who are
You're
blind
underestimating the Hollies
and
fans.
only heard the song and were like, "Oh, I heard my great great grandkid said that Taylor Swift has a concert movie. This is a Holly's concert movie. I'm going to it. I don't know why they're calling it Saw X, but whatever." And they get on the hospice bus and they're out there. Those are the only people that are going to see this movie. We're going to see with this opening weekend who remains, who is still alive that cares about Saw as a franchise. This will not
But
expand outside of the circle.
But you look at this Saw franchise, and you got to throw out Spiral. May 2021,
We are
that
throwing out
movie,
Spiral, of
throw it out.
course.
No Tobin Bell. It's opening when people barely are allowed to go to movie theaters. That was a
Chris Rock is
total.
not a movie star.
Chris
People
Rock
do
is not
not
a
see
movie
Chris
star.
Rock movies.
That was
Mhm.
barely a Saw movie. So
Yeah.
you look at the non-Spiral movies. Obviously, they'd been not hitting the height that they did, but Saws 2 through 5 all opened at 30 million. Then you had the dip
Okay.
for Saw 6, but then Saw 3D, and again, this 2010, did 24 million. Jigsaw did 16 million. If you're talking just Saw base, that base is in the mid-teens. And I do think that this movie has the nostalgia factor going for it that Jigsaw didn't have, that Spiral obviously didn't have. Like, I do think enough time has passed since the height of Saw, where listen, either the franchise is over, and you're right, that's possible, or there is the nostalgia factor of people have been watching these movies for years. I do not think the Saw movies have disappeared in the consciousness. I do think these are very
Mm-mm.
rewatchable movies. These are, I mean, you tell us, Christopher, these movies came out in the 2000s, but in the 2010s, were these movies that you and your friends or other young people were discovering and watching? Like, did you feel like Saw was still in the youth culture in the 2010s?
Oh yeah, just because some of my friends aren't horror hounds or anything, everyone definitely knows what Saw is. Saw is it's
Mhm.
definitely not forgotten. People definitely know what Saw is and know the concept.
But Pat,
Y-
we seem to be arguing, but also agreeing because from what I was thinking you were saying, and
Uh-huh.
correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
is that this Saw movie was going to do akin to the OG Saw movies when they were at the height of their popularity. It, you thought this could break out in a way the past few didn't, and I'm not okay. Spiral in the in the trash, in the
In the trash.
toilet,
Not a
flush
Saw
it.
movie. Yeah.
It dead in a grave, throw the dirt on it. Right?
Yes.
Not talking about that. We're talking about Jigsaw, and then
Right.
we're talking about the previous ones. If you're saying that the core audience for this is mid-teens
Yes.
$1 million, which is what it's tracking at, then that's what I think it's going to make.
But I
So
think it's going
we're
to do more than
agreeing.
the I think it's going to do more than the core. I don't think this hits the height of the, mid 4 movies, those movies that all did 30, but I do think this opens in the mid 20s. My
Oh,
thought is that
now we do disagree. Yes.
that's where we
Okay.
disagree.
We
My thought is
absolutely
that
disagree. Yes.
the base would be yes, this opens to 15. I'd be shocked
Yeah.
if this opens to lower than that. I do think
Okay.
that is still what the floor is, but I think this is higher than the floor. I think this has a nostalgia factor of, hey, we've been missing Saw for a while. This is a very Tobin Bell centered movie. It's got the Holly song, good trailer. And I think that gets you to 25.
God, you
That's
love
my
these
thought.
you love Tobin Bell, you love Ellen Burstyn, you love the oldies but goodies.
Yeah. They're
Here's the thing.
terrifying.
I'm so glad that we are not agreeing.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared that we were agreeing because that is so boring.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We are not agreeing. This does not make $20 million. This thing could not even be number 2 at the box office. It's probably going to end up at number 4 or number 3 at the box office.
Oh
no, there's no way it makes less than Dumb Money. There's no or the
That's
Nuns.
right, not 4. I'm sorry.
Yes,
it could end up at 3. That's where it could end up.
Well,
and that's
I think that
where
top
it will
3
end
is
up.
all going to be super close anyway. So,
I here's the other thing that I think Saw X has going for it is, listen, Tobin Bell is a star in these movies. People love Tobin Bell. They're obviously, I think, having him centered in the movie and having him alive, which is a problem that the later Saw sequels had, is that they had killed off the Saw character in the third movie. That was always a problem for these deep Saw sequels, and you solve that by going back to a point before he cut his brain open. But that said, you don't need Tobin Bell going on the chat shows to promote this movie. Saw promotes itself, as opposed to some of these other movies that are opening this weekend, or at least I would say The Creator and Dumb Money do suffer from a lack of marketing going on right now. Whereas I do think people know Saw is coming out. I think more than these other movies, the Saw X awareness is pretty high in a way that I think when we talk about it, I think The Creator awareness is, to me, non-existent. But I think Saw X is just billboards, trailers, commercials. I think that's all you ever needed to get the awareness out for this movie.
Well, the awareness is there because Lionsgate needs this.
Yes.
They need, after Expendables, that thing is going to disappear next weekend. I think that this is definitely a big deal for Lionsgate.
Mm-hmm.
They need a hit. They can't just be John Wick.
Yes.
And that Hunger Games movie looks like S hit. So that is not going to do any business. So this is one of the viable franchises that they are still holding on to. Right. And I don't know. We can talk about what our numbers are going to be, but I highly doubt this thing breaks out and makes more than the 16 million that Jigsaw made. I think it makes on par or maybe less.
To me, Jigsaw, and I think I've said this before, but Jigsaw feels like Scream 4, in which there was a little bit of a break, but it wasn't long enough for the nostalgia to really be part of be a plus for the box office. I do think Saw X is more akin to Five Cream, which is, it's been long enough that the nostalgia factor is part of the marketing and part of the draw. It's like people feel like we haven't seen Saw in a while. Back in the day, Saw was looked at as torture porn and super gory, and now people get older and you're nostalgic for the Jigsaw Killer. I think that's where we've gotten as a society, is people have a warm place in their heart for this guy who would make you stick spikes into your eyeballs to get a key out of your brain. It's like that's where we are in society. We have some warm fuzzies for this guy.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Again, horror, like Brett always says, like Christopher said, you can't bet against horror, but I just don't think this is going to be the big horror movie of the season.
It's also going to be a test of, people always complain about how the Christmas season gets earlier and earlier every year. You go into Walmart, you see Christmas decorations in August, and that's everyone's favorite joke at a barbecue. But this is a test of, can you start the Halloween season on September 29th? Because Saw's not coming out near Halloween. Saw's coming out September 29th, but I kind of think you can. And I think that'll be a big test of this.
Yeah.
So there you
I
go.
think this season starts early and earlier. I think
Yeah.
Halloween especially is starting
Sometimes it
earlier and
starts in
earlier.
June, as we saw with like the Black Phone. So like, yeah,
True.
horror hits all year round.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I mean, let's get into then the other movie that is being touted as the possible number one. I mean, it's the most predicted number one movie of this weekend. Is this sci-fi action movie called The Creator? It stars John David Washington, and it's it's getting, it's getting tracking around 20 million, low 20 millions. I mean, again, we'll give our official predictions at the end of the episode. To me, this feels like like a surefire underperformer, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. And of course, I root for an original movie like this to do well, but I don't see it, and the comps for it to me are kind of scary because it just feels like, Ad Astra is something that people comp it to, and that opens to 19 million, but that's a Brad Pitt star.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you look at these thinky sci-fi movies, you're thinking your Solarises and you're thinking your Children's of Men's is, and I mean, those aren't big budget openers. So I don't know. To me, this movie feels like it's going to perform. You don't have the actors out there promoting it, and not that John David Washington's a big star, but I think him telling people this exists would have helped. But throw to you guys, Christopher. What is your thought on The Creator? Is this something that you feel like there's an awareness for out there?
Yeah, you actually said there wasn't, and I've been watching a lot of college football and just a lot of football in general with my friends, and I've seen commercials for this all the time, all over the
Okay.
place. So I definitely think an awareness is there. And even though the comps are like Ad Astra and stuff like that, this I feel like is not being promoted as like a thinky sci-fi movie. It seems like more like
Mhm.
action oriented. Like there's the always the scene you see in the trailers with the robots and John David Washington fighting on like the docks or something and big explosions and robots and stuff like that. So this is being touted as more of a sci-fi action movie than a movie I think you're supposed to go sit down and think about for days after you leave the theater.
That is true. That would help because people hate thinky sci-fi, and then they pretend they like it years later. But
Well,
they almost,
Arrival was a pretty sizable hit, but
yeah,
again,
Yeah.
that had stars in it
yeah,
and a auteur filmmaker. And I think what makes this for me feel like it's going to be a dud. Gareth Edwards is not a auteur.
Mm-mm.
He is not a guy that you can hang a concept on and say, from the mind of Gareth Edwards. Okay. So
mm,
you have that where I don't trust this guy to have a smart movie. I just don't. It's just coming from my gut, my like film goer gut,
right,
that
right,
I will not trust this guy to make a smart movie.
yeah,
Listen, this thing could be brilliant. I don't know, but I don't trust it. The other
okay.
thing is
You
John
trust your
David.
gut,
I trust my gut.
yeah,
Listen, salt of the earth. All I got is
Mm-hmm.
my gut. All
right,
right. Now, John David Washington, not a star, absolutely not a star. And I would say there's so much online about how boring this guy is. I think he's actually a deterrent to see this movie because he
ooh,
is not a compulsively watchable lead the way his father is. Oh my God, I mentioned it. His dad is Denzel Washington, one of the greatest forever stars who doesn't have to eat the hot wings. Guess
right,
what?
right,
John David Washington would have to eat the hot wings 50 times. That's
right,
how
right.
low of a star he is on the poll.
So he's
Okay.
going back for multiple episodes.
They're making him chug every bottle at the end. All
Okay,
right.
wow.
Wow.
Okay,
For
so they're
this
just
movie.
pouring it in his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
This is it's more of a saw torture than a
right,
Hot Ones episode.
right.
So you got that going against it. Now, okay, everybody's touting this having great reviews. It's at 79%. And we've had this fight before a little bit, Pat, but I'm agreeing with you on this here. For this sort of movie, an original movie, 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, it might as well be a 0 because it's got to be 100. For this movie from this director with this star for people to want to go and see it, it needs to be blowing people's fucking heads clean off.
Right,
And
right.
it's not doing that. And I think this is hype. This is the studio hyping this thing, acting as if it's going to be a Matrix style sort of like, oh, come from nowhere hit. They got these robots at these baseball games, which we didn't talk about last week. So let's talk about these robots at
Yeah.
baseball games.
Yeah, I mean we love baseball game based promotions. Of course, the Smile promotion of 2022 was one of the great promotional tactics of the last few years. They sent smiling people to sit behind the plate at baseball games. So these robots have, Christopher, you were talking about how the sports promotion for this has been heavy. Have you seen the robots at these baseball games, or does baseball as a sport not track for you at all?
It's football season right now, so football is on our TV all the time. I do personally like baseball. I did actually not see any of them at the games. I did see a clip of some of them at like a soccer game now, so I did see
Okay.
that. But
Oh, I might be misspeaking. I feel like, okay, I'm sorry. They were in an NFL game. They were at
They
the
were in an
Los
NFL game.
Angeles Chargers and Dolphins game at SoFi Stadium. Two teams. I mean, the Chargers, nobody's a fan of the Chargers in LA, so they don't care. Miami, having a great season so far. But I think people were more just perplexed by these aliens sitting. They weren't sort of scared like the Smile people made them,
Right,
or
right.
I think they were just sort of like, are these just Silicon Valley people? Like, are these just are these
Right.
just people who are on liquid diets and they're on brain juice, and this is the new thing that all these people are going to be doing? I don't think it like resonated enough as weird for people to even give a shit.
People thought they were models.
People just probably thought that they were like, oh, this is a new thing this is the new thing that people in Silicon Valley do, so they don't have to ever sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think the Taylor Swift appearance kind of sucked all the energy out of, promoting your thing at a football game this past week.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is the type of movie that we all say we want, which is an original, just big action movie that's not IP, that's not superheroes, that feels a little more 90s. Back in the day, could this be Independence Day? Could this be an I Am Legend or a I, Robot type of movie? Basically, could this be a Will Smith sci-fi action vehicle? And so
Those were both based on famous stories, though.
They were, but they weren't based on comic books. But you know what I mean. They were movies that they felt original, even if they weren't. But this movie is what we say we want. But will people know it's the awareness? And I guess they've been promoting it during these sporting events, so that's great. But I still don't know if it's broken through where the average Joe lunch pail, the average plain Billy living in the stacks, is aware that this movie is coming out on Friday, or is aware of a hook that makes them feel like, I've got to see this. Does the creator have the blowing up the White House moments? Because that's what people go to a movie for, is just a specific hook that is really connected with them. So I don't know. I haven't seen as much of the marketing for this, but do you feel like there is that moment in the promotion that people are going to say, I got to go see it this weekend because it has this? It has.
No, I mean, Christopher mentioned that fighting scene, which
Right.
doesn't, at this point, I mean, we've lived through so many, Star Wars movies and Star Trek reboots and Marvel movies and Guardians movies and space stuff, sci-fi stuff. It doesn't get us out of bed. And awareness, we talk a lot about awareness, and how awareness is just the first step, and it's a huge step, and it's the biggest step, but it's not the end of the line. So just because people are aware of a movie does not mean they will spend their money to see it. This movie might have high awareness, but I don't think anybody's going to pony up to see this, right?
Yeah.
I just don't see those elements. Listen, if John David Washington opens this movie to like $25-30 million, then hey, I'll eat my words.
Of course.
But that ain't going to happen. That I mean, that ain't gonna happen. It just ain't. Not with this director, not with this concept, and not with the competition
Right.
that's going up against this movie.
So one last thing I think on this movie worth talking about is, to me, this is a big test for AI as a plot device that people want to see. Because
Uh-huh.
you had Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 this summer where the villain was AI, and that was one of the most disappointing box office returns in the Mission Impossible franchise compared to what the expectations were.
Well, yeah, I
And
mean, it
you
was great for a movie if it didn't have the expectations it had, which was to be
exactly.
a Maverick type hit,
Yeah,
which it
but
was never gonna
it
be.
was a downturn from even the previous movie, and we would all say the Mission Impossible box office this summer was not great. And this movie, the creator, AI is a big part of the plot. You know, whether it's the villain, the hero, who knows, but it's AI again. And my gut, you know, I don't have a salt of the earth gut. I got a big city coastal elite gut. But my gut is telling me that people do not want to hear about AI right now.
Mhm.
So to me, that is a turnoff. And Christopher, do you feel like that's a turnoff, or maybe the young people are like, I love AI. I want stories about AI. And has AI been pushed? You know, I know that's a big part of this movie. Has that been pushed in the forefront of the marketing? You know, is AI one of the hooks of this movie?
Yes, well, AI is, but not to get political or anything, but they're using AI as like a whole. In case I step in it, they're
Okay.
using AI as a whole metaphor for like racism. So if people are picking up on that, they also might not want like AI, but then
Yeah.
also having to deal with like heavier themes like that too. So like, yeah, I think that probably is a deterrent because you don't really when you go to big sci-fi action movies, you kind of want to turn your brain off a little bit
Yeah,
more.
that all feels to me like, hey, maybe this movie's great, but all of those things feel like box office deterrents, both AI and then AI as a metaphor, and then something as a metaphor for racism. I feel like within a a big budget action movie, those don't feel like pluses to
No.
me.
It's
So,
it's feeling all like minuses. So when we look at something like 65, which was a
oh boy,
original sci-fi film
yeah,
starring an actor that I personally love, and I think we all sort of love this guy, Adam
oh
Driver.
yeah, yeah.
And
Mhm.
I do think he's a better screen presence than John David Washington, but he hasn't really shown that he can lead a movie. But he's not a deterrent, I don't think, to anybody. If that movie can only open to 12, what makes people think that this movie is gonna open higher than that?
It's got better reviews, and it 65 felt DOA in the weeks before. That felt like a toss off. But I agree with you. I think it's closer to that than it is to a movie that's going to get over 20. I think it'll be
Mhm.
bigger than 65, but I mean, listen, obviously, I don't think that's going to be number one. So it's very interesting that the creator going into this weekend seems to be the consensus pick, but I don't see it personally. So we'll find out this weekend. Let's move on to the other big wide release this weekend. So Paw Patrol, the Mighty movie comes out. So there was a Paw Patrol the movie that opened to 13 million in 2021. So obviously 2021, August 2021, that's still COVID times and
And that was especially like I think Omicron was
Yeah,
right.
that was
all the rage. That
so,
was
like,
like
yeah, no
ground
kids going to the
zero.
movies anyway, so that getting to
Yeah,
13 was actually pretty good for
pretty
it then.
impressive.
Yeah.
Um, you know, this is a franchise that none of us should be watching this. Obviously, I think it would be something to be, you know, looked into by the authorities if any of us said that. Although, well, you know what? I take that back. I think if you're a college guy, God knows you can watch anything, and if you got the right substances with you,
I
you know, and
will
I won't
say
name those
out of the
substances.
4 new wide releases that's coming out this week, that is the only one I am not going to because I do plan on trying to catch the other
Okay,
3 at some point. So,
okay.
Okay.
yeah.
So Paw Patrol in the dorms, it's not SpongeBob. It's
Oh, it's
not
definitely
something.
no, that it's like a generation the Paw Patrol's like a generation, like, below that.
Okay.
Paw
But
Patrol is
even
for little
Yeah,
kids.
is
it's
for
also
babies.
yeah,
Okay.
And there's
And
nothing for anybody over a certain age
yeah.
in these movies. They don't even
okay.
attempt, I
Yeah.
don't
Got it.
think,
No,
to
they
So
make
it's
it
yeah,
for
as far as I
anybody
know, yeah.
older.
not even like an ironic watch. You throw it on 3 a.m., light up whatever. We won't say here, light
Yeah.
up whatever. You're not watching a bunch of Paw Patrol episodes with your
Definitely
buds.
not.
Okay.
No.
So this is purely for the kids.
Mhm.
And it's a motto of the show. The rats need their cheese. So the idea of this bombing, I think we all maybe feel on the same page. This movie's not going to fall off a cliff, but it doesn't feel like the Paw Patrol franchise is at a height right now where this movie's going to do something totally unexpected.
Well,
Well,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh,
go,
uh,
Christopher, go.
I saw today actually on Twitter. It's from a source I get all my news from, so I assume it's true. Paw Patrol 3 is already dated for 2026.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least the studio has some faith in it to make some
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, which again, I think these movies are probably budgeted pretty well because it's I would assume it's a little more than stringing together 3 episodes of the TV series. Maybe there's some more costs in it than that. But if this movie opens in the low teens, then yeah, it'll probably get to a number that makes sense for them to put out a third movie. But do any of us see any breakout potential in this opening weekend? Does it feel in any way like the Paw Patrol franchise is cresting right now, where this will be bigger than Paw Patrol the movie in a significant way?
I think it opens bigger than Paw Patrol movie because of the fact that that was hamstrung. It
Mhm.
definitely gets a mulligan, that first movie, because of Omicron.
Yeah.
Now, I do think this is a franchise that didn't get a chance to have
Mm.
that big first movie, like
Mhm.
Smurfs did,
Right.
like Secret Life of Pets did. Now, those, of course, those movies are going to be way bigger. I mean, because they have a wider sort of audience age wise.
Right.
But when you look at what has been out since Barbie, really, and Barbie is more of an adult movie that like little kids went to, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Well, you had the
there's been,
Turtles. You had the Turtles in
but
August.
that is not for little kids. That
Eh,
is, that is for kids, but that's out of theaters now. It's streaming.
right, right.
So, like you said, the rats do need their cheese.
Mhm.
And I think this thing does overperform what I think, Pat, you're expecting it to do, which is be
Okay.
in low teens. I think this is going to make more than that. The one thing that worries me, and this is what I'm looking towards here, because Secret Life of Pets, a movie I mentioned, the second film sort of went a little bit hard in on making one of the characters a superhero. That rabbit that was
Okay.
voiced by what's his face? The guy yeah, that's in all the Netflix movies now. He's not in actual
Kevin
movies
Hart.
anymore. Kevin Hart. Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much. I think that was a mistake. Now that
Mhm.
movie still made Bafa Bobo, but nothing compared to the first one, which was a huge breakout hit.
Mhm.
When a kids franchise goes superhero, it worries me. Have you
Mm.
already exhausted all the ideas and now they have superpowers?
Right, right.
That bothers me a little bit. It reminded me of Secret Life of Pets 2, which we thought could be a franchise that went on and on and on, and 2 movies and done, it looks like.
Mhm.
So that's my only worry, but rats needing their cheese, no other kids movie available, and I know kids are back at school, but they still need something to do on the weekends.
Right, right.
I
Mhm.
think this thing goes bigger than the first one, but I don't
Okay.
think it goes crazy. I'm not saying it's gonna make, like, $40 million, but I do think it makes more than the first one did.
Okay.
For sure. Slam doink.
Yeah. I'd be around that. Yeah, it's coming out in a better time than August of 2021. So it makes sense that it would do a little higher than that. Though I don't know if just the Paw Patrol buzz has died down. I mean, even in the years since we've seen the rise of Coco Melon, we've seen the rise of Bluey. Our kids saying, you know what? let me wait until the Bluey movie comes out, or I just want to watch Bluey at home, because I think if a Bluey movie was coming out this weekend, I think that's a movie that could open to 30 million. I think if a Coco Melon movie was coming out this weekend,
Yeah.
that does 30 million. Paw Patrol does feel like your grandfather's kids show a
Now,
little
Pat,
bit.
you have nieces.
I do.
And this is coming from experience with them. I mean, they're a little bit older now, but
Yeah.
when they were younger, did they watch the Paw Patrol? Or
They
like you
never
say,
did. I mean, to be fair, my nieces kind of went straight to Tim Burton movies, or at least the
okay.
oldest one has. She was never a Paw Patrol person. But I will say, amongst the two younger ones, it's definitely more Coco Melon, more Bluey than it is Paw Patrol. Paw
All
Patrol
right.
has never caught on, at least in that house. That's anecdotal. But I think in general, Paw Patrol is starting to become a third tier little kids franchise.
They
But
still do make new episodes though. They
they
they had
do.
a new they did have like their new season came out like I think it ended in like August or something.
Right.
When I was like looking into it. But yeah, so they are still at least popular enough to warrant new seasons. So if that's
Is
something.
is Coco Melon a show that on campus you could sit in the dorm 3 in the morning, smoke up whatever, and watch some Coco Melon? Is that a ironic dorm franchise?
I can safely say neither me or any of my friends have seen a single episode of Coco Melon as far as I know.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
Christopher, then what do you do drugs and watch?
Yeah. Lots of movies. Movies.
Okay.
I try to
Okay.
stay or the staples are either like the animated shows like Rick and Morty is a big one, Family Guy, South Park,
Okay.
Office, of just like the
Got it.
those like brainless comedies you can kind of just like watch on, but like always have a joke a minute or two. So
Got
stuff
it.
like that.
Okay. So not singing along to Coco Melon, How to Tie Your Shoes, and
No,
which vegetable.
definitely SpongeBob. SpongeBob definitely comes on from time to time.
Yeah, that's a
But
Okay.
big one.
yeah,
Great.
You're ripping
So
bongs and laughing at Squidward for sure.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So, Paw Patrol, I feel like we're all around the same page, where we'd be shocked if this breaks out, but we'd also don't expect the bottom to drop out on these super pets.
Hmm.
So, Dumb Money is the other wide release this weekend, and this is a movie that the studio, which is this Paramount or
Sony,
Sony?
Sony.
Sony has platformed. They've tried to make this a fall awards play where the word of mouth is going to get out there. And we haven't, unfortunately, seen great returns in terms of a per theater average in these opening, limited release weekends. So it hasn't gotten that huge buzz heading into the wide release weekend where everyone's saying, man, all the screenings on the coast have been sold out. The reviews are through the roof. People have wanted to get into this movie and haven't had the chance. And it hasn't had that. But do either of you think that the wide release will be different, where there is something about this movie that when you just get it out into the mall theaters, people are going to respond and say, I want to go spend my Saturday night with Paul Dano?
Here's and Christopher, I'll let you speak after this, but I just wanted to remember what I was going to say because I could feel it slipping. I'm a lot older than you, so these
Yeah.
these things
Mhm.
slip out of my mind.
Hmm.
I think what we're seeing, and Gran Turismo is a great example of this, is that internet-based heroes do not do business at the theater. Okay,
Mm,
a gamer turned race car driver. People said, he's a gamer. I don't care. He's not a hero to
mm.
me.
Okay.
The character Paul Dano plays, who I do not know personally, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know the full extent of this story, but I do know that he is a internet investor that
Mhm.
was on Reddit. And I don't think Redditors are looked at by the Earth Dogs, by the Joe Lunchpails, by the Susie Crocheters as rootable heroes.
Mm.
And so that, I think, is what people are going to turn their nose up at and reject. that
Mhm.
I don't think these internet-based protagonists are rootable. And I mean,
Mm.
you look at Social Network, right, which was a movie that came out a long time ago. That character that was played, what was
Mark
Zuckerberg,
Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
was the villain in that movie. He was like the hero, but that's a prestige movie. They weren't really making him look like a good guy. From what Dumb Money is trying to do, they're trying to make Paul Dano's character a hero. And I think the general public is saying, go touch grass. We don't give a
Mhm.
shit.
That is something a lot of people say online.
They do
Um,
say, go touch grass.
yeah, I mean, in the social network days too, I think there was more of a optimism about the internet that there
Mhm.
isn't
Yeah.
today. So people don't want to, they don't have that same optimism or giving them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to, oh, Paul Dano is playing a guy who's got an internet finance YouTube channel as the hero. But I
Mhm.
don't know, Christopher, do you think differently? Are younger people more invested in internet based heroes and maybe they're more apt to go see Paul Dano in Dumb Money?
Well, one, I think the strike, this is one of those movies the strike definitely hurt by that. Like you
Mhm.
guys have mentioned in past episodes, the reason you get all these actors like Seth Rogen, like Paul Dano, like Shailene Woodley in a movie like this is so they can go talk it up, go eat the hot wings, go on all the morning talk shows, all that stuff. And then two, that they're basically making a movie off of a meme. And we have seen time and time again, like tweets aren't tickets, like
Mhm.
memes, the Morbius meme, like we've just seen so many times that meme movies don't work. And this really, like, it was a meme. Like this started off as like a Reddit thing, and Reddit is like a meme thing. So I think they're making a movie off a meme, and it's not gonna work too well.
Yeah, it needed to get the buzz, and it needed to get the buzz more akin to something like The Big Short, which
Sure.
I
Yeah.
don't think it
Mhm.
got. I don't think that this movie is being looked at as, and I think Clayton, you might have said this in a past episode, if this were a directed by Adam McKay movie,
Yes.
then it immediately would have had that type of buzz that it doesn't necessarily have from, even though he's directed movies that have been up for Oscars. Craig Gillespie doesn't quite get that. But I'm looking at even The Big Short. It opened to 10 million and just had a really leggy run. Something like Dumb Money would never have been expected to open huge. It's going to be more about the next 2 to 3 months. So the question really is, could this movie open to a number that even gives it that chance? Because if this movie opens to 3 or 4 million, then it's DOA. If it opens to 7 or above, then it has a chance of catching on.
Well,
But I think that's the
yeah.
question. Is there a chance this movie just opens to 3, 4, $5 million, and then at that point, Sony's gonna have a hard time keeping it in theaters 2 weeks from now?
I think if we're talking Big Short, which I understand why you would go there with that, but you got to also look at that murderer's row of actors. You got
Right.
Christian Bale, you've got Ryan
Yeah.
Gosling, you got Brad Pitt, you got Steve Carell, you had Margot Robbie in a bathtub, you had that's like murderer's row, and nothing against Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, America Ferrera, Woodley. I almost said Woodye. Um, that is not the same caliber.
Woody
And
is
Craig
not in this
Gillespie,
movie. Woody is
no,
not in
he's
this
not.
movie.
What are you
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
He is not in this movie, although it could be fun if he was.
yeah.
Now, the thing
He feels
is
more
that
like an Expendables 5 casting, Woody.
yes, they should have
Yeah,
gone whack pack for Expendables 5,
yeah.
definitely, if it gets made. Now, I do think what we're finding here with these at least two of these big movies is the lack of a director that can sell a movie, right?
Hmm.
Gareth Edwards, Craig Gillespie, like you said, if it's Adam McKay, and God, if creator is Nolan or Fincher even,
Right,
then
Oh
right,
we're
yeah.
talking. We're cooking with gas because
right.
Barbie was a huge smash because it was a movie people wanted to see, but a lot of that had to do with the fact that Greta Gerwig was behind the lens, right? We will see that Killers of the Flower Moon is a movie that will succeed because Scorsese is
It's
lensing it
it's
and not because some journeyman is behind the camera shooting this movie.
It really is interesting in these days of the SAG strike where actors cannot promote. The amount of press Scorsese got this weekend for Killers of Flower Moon really does show what a movie star director he is. I mean, I've been high on this movie. Obviously, I can't wait to see it. And
Yeah.
I've been thinking it's going to do really well in theaters. My expectations for this movie went up a lot this week because I do think the awareness for that movie is off the charts.
Yeah.
And I think Scorsese has done such a good job of being the movie star promoting this. And if the SAG strike ends in the next couple of weeks and you could get Leo, he'll just be on the cover of a magazine. He'll do a couple of interviews. But if you get Leo out there, then we're off to the races. But it's true. Scorsese has gotten so much attention on that movie in a way that obviously Gareth Edwards and Craig Gillespie, it would be insane to compare them to the most famous, prolific director of the last 50 years. But still, they weren't able to really sell this movie with their actors not out there. They just haven't been able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and does Scorsese drag that same Barca lounger that he put in the subway when he was talking to Timothy Chalamet? I saw him in a internet video. It feels like they just drag a Barca lounger around for him to sit in, which he deserves. But I've noticed the Barca lounger a lot, and I feel like that's something that he could definitely sell as merch. Is that the Scorsese Barca lounger? I would have one of those in my apartment tomorrow.
I think he wants to be careful, though, of selling Barca loungers because he doesn't want people to wait until Killers of the Flower Moon goes to Apple TV Plus. So I think that's his hesitation with selling the novelty Barca loungers. He doesn't want to get people to just wait to watch at home in their Scorsese Barca lounger. He wants them in those theaters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. You definitely nailed it. You definitely nailed it.
So those are the 4 new releases. Of course, we've got these holdovers. We got Expendables 4. We got Nun 2. I mean, does anyone think Expendables 4 is going to do anything other than fall off a goddamn cliff this weekend?
Oh, no, that's out of the top 5 easily. 100%.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think let's get to it. I think it's time to give our top 5 predictions. So we always give the guests the choice of where you want to go. So Christopher, do you want to go first, second, or third in giving your weekend predictions?
I'll go second.
Go second.
Nice.
Second's becoming more and more of the popular choice, which is
Yeah.
surprising to me, but times change. So people like
it's
going
the
second.
smart way to go because you don't put yourself out there, but you also don't seem anticlimactic.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
So you know what? I'll go first because
Okay, well, there we go. So
we all know what
There
I'm
we
going to
go.
say.
Thanks, Christopher. I blame you for this.
Saw X, number 1. And I think it's due in $24 million. I think this
you're
is
sicko.
This is the nostalgia's there. We missed you, old Saw. You're back. Can't wait to see you force someone to pull their tongue out and shove it up their asshole or whatever fun stuff he's got in store. Sequel to the first movie, it's going to do $24 million. So number 2, I think is going to be Paw Patrol. The Mighty movie is going to be number 2. I think that's going to do 15 million because I think right behind it is going to be number 3 is The Creator is going to do like 14 million. I just listen, I hope I'm wrong because God, of course I want an original movie with a young star to be a hit, but I'm not feeling it. So I think that's open to number 3. And then number 4 is it'll be Dumb Money. I think Dumb Money gets to like 6. And then number 5 is going to be The Nun 2 at like $5 million. And I think Expendables is going to fall behind Haunting in Venice, Equalizer 3, and Barbie. I think all of those
there's no
movies-
way it falls below Barbie.
I
That's
think
sick.
I think Expendables is going to make like $2 million this weekend.
Whoa.
Have a little respect for the Italian stallion.
I think it gets to 2 or 3 million, but I think that's going to fall not just out the top 5. That's fallen to like 8 or 9 this weekend.
That's crazy. But anyway, Christopher.
Yeah, so I'm gonna side with Pat. I think Saw X is gonna open over 20 million. I don't think it's gonna go to 24, but I do think it has a chance of hitting 22. And then I'm also a little bit high on the creator. I think that's gonna come in at number two. I think it can make $19 million. I'm not. I'm a little bit higher on it. I think the promotion is out there and it looks cool enough to
Mhm.
I think it looks cool enough to do something. Then number three, right under that, I think that's going to be Paw Patrol. 17 million, I think, is a good number to go for that. And then I was originally thinking The Nun at number four, but I just changed my mind because there's another new horror movie coming out, so I think it's gonna drop a little bit. I think I am gonna go Dumb Money at around 6 million, and then I think The Nun's gonna do at number five 5 million, and then yeah, Expendables. I don't know as steep as Pat's saying, but I definitely think it's gonna end up being actually seven. I don't think it's 8 or 9, but I think it's gonna be seven.
Mhm.
Now, the thing we have to remember about the creator is it's getting the PLFs,
Yes, that's
right?
Yes,
also a huge
It is
that's
getting the
also what I
PLFs.
was thinking
So,
too.
that's true. We have
so
not said its name of IMAX. It's getting
Yeah.
IMAX.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
getting
true.
Screen X. It's getting
That's true.
40X. So
That's
that
true.
is going to make that ticket more expensive.
Yep.
But here's what I'm going to say: the rats need their
Oh,
cheese. Paw
Wow.
Patrol: The Mighty Movie, number one, 20 million bones. That is what that movie's going to make. It's going to take number one.
Wow.
Number two is going to be The Creator. It's going to be very close, but The Creator is going to be number two because of the PLFs, because that ticket
Mm.
price is going to be higher
Mhm.
than the ticket price for Saw X. So The Creator, I think, is going to make around $18 million. Saw X, I'm going with the base, $16 million.
Okay.
That is the
okay.
base. Sorry, Holly's fans. I don't think they can get the oxygen tanks into the theaters to see this movie.
I
So
mean,
sorry. Saw
oxygen
10.
tanks are the air that they breathe.
Yeah.
There we go. See
Yeah.
what we both were doing?
Yeah.
And then I do think the next two are kind of a slam dunk unless Dumb Money really, really does nothing. I think
Mm.
Dumb Money comes in 5 million, 6 million. Nun 2, it is spooky season. I think
Mm.
the Nun is stronger than I thought for sure. This Nun
Mhm.
has legs. She knows how to use them. So I
Mhm.
think number 5 is the Nun. And can I really, actually, Expendables 4 will go under A Haunting in Venice because spooky season started. So,
Mhm.
but I don't think it goes lower than that. I don't think it goes lower than The Equalizer. I can't do that to Sly. I can't do that to my man.
I mean, I think Equalizer and Haunting in Venice over Expendables is a slam doink because Expendables dropping 60+% means that it's in the low threes. And I think Equalizer this weekend probably makes like 3.5. I don't know. I think Expendables is at best 7 this weekend.
I don't know. I have a little bit
We'll
more
see.
faith. I mean, listen, I think that, I think that that movie is liked by no one, but I still don't think that it's going to go lower than The
I
Equalizer.
saw it and it is not a very impressive movie at all. I do
Mm,
have to throw. I know we're not critics, huh?
huh.
But
Huh? Huh?
it was not a very good movie and it was a very cheap looking movie and it just seemed like people that were there for a check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had Kirk Minahan on the last episode. He saw it too out of a sense of duty and respect for Sly, but he also basically hit those points. It looked cheap, and I think that word has gotten out that this was a straight to DVD movie that ended up in theaters.
And I had the
Yeah.
same experience. It was 3 people in the movie theater including me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I
So,
mean, the
yeah.
box office take really showed that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there was many a theater that had 3 to 4 people
Yeah.
in it.
So,
Now,
this is such an interesting weekend because, I mean, we predicted of the three of us 2 different movies to be opening number one. We almost went with 3. Christopher, I'm sure, had Creator as a movie that could have opened number one. So there's a lot of possibilities this weekend. You don't get that very often where there's enough wide releases that are that close where anything
mhm.
could truly happen. So our next episode is going to be fascinating, no matter what the result is, because it's just who knows? Who knows?
Now, Christopher, I know you have a hard out, so I just want to talk very quickly because we have you talking about results. How is the investigation into the Twitter poll coming? The Taylor Swift Twitter poll, which of course we know, the results where I should go see this movie.
Well, you have to
Have
go
the
see
votes
that.
been?
That's
I have to go see this movie. Have the votes been recounted? Have you gotten IP addresses? Have you figured out whether these are actual bots that have been voting or people? What is the investigation looking like at the moment?
I think you definitely have to go see Taylor Swift Eras Tour. And on top of that, another ongoing thread from our Twitter is when Brett from the New Flesh Pod was on here. I forget the exact number, but if Saw X made a certain amount of money, you do have to eat crow. I have to go back in the records and look what number that was, but you might have crow in your future as well as a Taylor
wow.
Swift movie ticket.
I wouldn't rush to do that. What I would rush to do is just give me concrete evidence that these votes are real. And I will do my best. I know you have a heavy course load. I know you're partying very, very hard, as you should, as you
Mhm.
should. Number 6 team in the country. So
Yep.
you got to, but still, let's get some real evidence. And you don't have to say it online, on main. You can email it to me.
Mhm.
But let's get that tightened up and make sure, because it's coming up. I'm gonna either have to see this movie or not, depending on if these results are factual.
All right, I'll send you the proof later tonight. I'll send it over to
Oh,
you.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great.
Wow. Very
And I will either
exciting.
accept or reject it.
No, hey, you have to do what Twitter does. Yeah, what Twitter tells you to do. What Twitter X tells you to do. You got to do it.
This guy
Yeah.
sound like the creator all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I
So-
assume. I guess that's what the creator does, is tell people what to do, right?
Yeah.
It's about, I think it's an action sci-fi movie about accepting the results of Twitter X
Yeah, yeah,
polls.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's right up my alley then.
Yeah.
So, great job, everyone. This is a fantastic episode. So, of course, show us how fantastic this episode was by giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We love those reviews. It helps other listeners find the show. So, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and you just write, love the show, blah, 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 5 stars. There you go. That's it. And your work is done for the day. You can go to sleep after that. Of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod, on Twitter X, and on TikTok. So, Christopher, you have been killing it, of course, with these vertical clips. I'm hearing rumors that there might be more posting going on the BO Boys on Twitter X. Is there anything you could hint at? Anything you could tell us about? Why should our listeners follow us on social media? What's exciting there?
You get to relive all the best moments in all the episodes, and yeah, there's always more new exciting content coming that you won't get just by watching the episodes. So
Wow.
it's going to expand. It's expanding.
Very exciting. So, of course, thank you. And thank your direct report, Jack, for all the work he's doing. And double thanks to you, Christopher, because we have yet to have to speak to Jack since he was on this show. Everything
Yes,
goes
thank
through
you.
you. So I think, when you're out there fielding all these job offers when you graduate, a big part of it is going to be, you could tell your employer, give me a direct report, and you'll never have to see them, never have to hear from them. So that's huge out there. So thanks
Mhm.
for doing
I
that.
only want to see Jack on my deathbed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has to be there. You have to get him there,
Yeah.
Christopher. But Clayton should not have to tell Jack the address of the deathbed. That's for you to relay to Jack.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And of course, we're YouTubers, so you can watch the show on YouTube. And again, Christopher killing it there with the short clips that are appearing on our YouTube channel. Of course, full episodes there as well. So go to find us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and everyone, they should ring that
Bell.
bell. Ring that bell. That is very important in modern society. And email us, the BO Boys pod at gmail.com. We love getting your emails, of course. Got an email from our good friend Danny at I screen, you scream 4, number 4, the
number
movies.
4.
So he gave his prediction, and this is an incredible prediction here. He says, my prediction for the creator, I feel like this is a beloved sci-fi movie will likely underperform uh, due to the number one thing movies need to get people to see a film, viral marketing promotion. You could thank SAG-AFTRA strike for preventing awareness for this movie. He's big on Saw X. Danny says Saw X, however, compared to the creator, sets a trap as an IP for many gore hounds, Saw fans to come out and see it and likely be the number one movie of the weekend. So, and he says the question is, does the Paw Patrol gang dodge all the traps? His top 5 is he's going Saw X at 32 million, Paw Patrol 26 million, then the creator at 18 million. It's got Dumb Money at 16 million. So
We would
I
love
love it.
all of this.
Yeah.
I would love this.
I mean, I love it. Danny out there, I screen, you scream 4, number 4 movies.
Number 4.
Saw X at 32 million. That is a dream come true if that happens. So I am very excited for that possible outcome. Who knows? Maybe Danny is right. Maybe.
I mean, listen, that would be dumb money.
Yeah.
For real, if all that came to pass. But that's great, man. Let's do it. I hope so. Can I read a really quick email from Reed? Wanna be old boy
Sure.
Reed, old school,
Go for
OG.
Yep.
Reed said, bunk beds. The Exorcist is a franchise with its roots in the 1970s, so water beds. Exorcism on a waterbed, it would add at least 4 to 5 million to the opening. Add Ellen Burstyn bouncing on a waterbed, that's another couple million. Baffa Bobo, love the show. Reed. I mean, we were talking about bunk beds maybe for the 2 possessed girls during the Exorcist movie. And waterbeds, why didn't we think of it? That's why we got Reed. Smart man.
Great call, Reed. And, that makes me want to go see this movie even more because maybe you're right. Maybe there are water beds in this movie. And last thing I'll read here is we got a email from wannabe oh boy Michael.
Yes.
Clayton, he is taking issue with what you've said on recent episodes that there have not been hit exorcism movies since the original Exorcist. And he says, I want to reach out about Clayton's comments in the last few episodes of how The Exorcist has never had anything successful since the original. I've been looking online if it's tied to The Exorcist or just a film about exorcism, getting mixed answers. Regardless, I was a middle schooler when this came out. I remember seeing it in a packed house with my friends. Look at the numbers. This movie opened to 30 million domestic and legged out to 75 million on a $19 million budget. Really successful. It was hot on the streets for a while for my friends and I. It's talking about the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So there have been hit exorcism-based movies other than the original. Again, Exorcism of Emily Rose opened to 30 million domestic. So
okay, here's the thing.
These devil possessions have their moments.
I love that wanna be oh boy Waxy, which is how he signs his email. So we're gonna refer to him as Waxy. If that is not your nickname, we won't do that. We'll call you Michael, but I like Waxy. Waxy, thank you for emailing this because this is clarifying my point. I didn't say exorcism movies in general did bullshit. I said exorcist movies. That is very important. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, I think, was a Scott Derrickson film, was it not?
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Right? Who's a guy who was very, very skilled. The Exorcist as a franchise, as an IP, when you look at Exorcist compared to Halloween, compared to Friday the 13th, all those sort of things, right? That's what we're talking about. Those movies have not done business at the box office. I'm not saying exorcism in general, although it is weak, it's not great, but exorcist movies that live in that world, which Emily Rose does not, those movies do poorly. That's my argument.
Okay. Well, thank you, wannabe oh boy Waxy, for that, getting the debate started. So you got to debate with Clayton right here on the air, and anyone could do that if they email us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. And guys, I think we have done it. I think we've done it.
I don't think there's anything left to say.
No.
Except for Until next time,
Will
we'll
smell
smell
you
you
at
at
the
the
box
box
office.
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 Nailed it.
Nailed
Nailed
it.
it.